Good morning, everybody. It's Easter Saturday. It's lovely to be seeing you in this way. And my name is Paul. I'm one of the clergy at Hope. And we are going to just join together in a short reflection on Easter Saturday. There's not very much on Easter Saturday in the church calendar that we do specifically. It's a day of quiet. And I wonder what Jesus' followers themselves felt on the original Easter Saturday. I think they probably felt a sense of shock, a realization of, gosh, they actually went ahead and did it. That as they woke, they realized this hasn't been a bad dream. This has actually happened, and Jesus has been put to death by the authorities and the chief priests and so on the cross. So a sense of shock, real shock, I think. And of course, sadness, grief, I think, for somebody he's been their friend for 3 years for some of them. He's been their teacher. They've learned so much from him. He's been their mentor. He has gradually allowed them to grow into what we would call ministry. He's sent them off, sometimes in small groups, sometimes just in twos. And just maybe, he's the Messiah. And I guess they're kind of scratching their heads and thinking, well, what exactly does that mean in these circumstances? So shock, sadness, I think some shame possibly, as they thought about the events of the last 24, 48 hours and how they lived up to expectations. There they were on the Monday and the Tuesday of the week, so to speak, with Jesus in the temple courts, and he'd been acclaimed coming in, and now all of a sudden he's dead. And what did they do in the last few hours when he was with them? Did they run away? Did they cower and hide? Did they actually deny him with their very own words? And so we have, of course, the testimony about Peter, and we know that that is what he did. But I would imagine that Peter is just a type for some of the others as well. We don't see a crowd of disciples at the foot of the cross, really, do we? So shock, sadness, shame, and I think also maybe a sense of suspense. So what now? And especially, what now, God? What was it that Jesus had been saying? He'd been saying something about 3 days, and he'd made a promise or two, and hey, what is going on? What's going to happen now? And this all in the context of a day of rest and of reflection, the Sabbath. What kind of Sabbath is this? What kind of Passover is this? Where is God in this? God, effectively, God, why are you so silent? The silence that we sense might be a feeling that God himself is silent. Now, the Bible doesn't tell us how the day of silence unfolded for the followers of Jesus. Did they pray? Were they prayers of desperation? Did they sleep? Or was it the sleep of exhaustion where they're just completely shattered by what had been going on? Did they just stare glumly at one another? Did they go for walks? What exactly did they do? But interestingly, the Bible does tell us that it was a busy day for another group of people. So it was a busy day for the chief priests and for the Pharisees, even in the midst of the Passover event itself. They were scurrying around, trying to and eventually succeeding in organizing a guard of Roman soldiers to stand in front of Jesus' tomb after having sealed it, just in case. So what about us? What about you and me? And the temptation, of course, I think, is to fast forward. But can I encourage us not to do that, not to fast forward to tomorrow, not to fast forward to Easter Sunday? Why don't we take the silence of Easter Saturday as an opportunity, and its stillness as a gift. The silence is not to be feared, but it could be welcomed. It could be filled with contemplation of Christ and with prayer. There's a Christian tradition that comes from the East, and it's called Isychasm. An Isychast is somebody who attains an inner stillness and therefore becomes one who listens well. You could say that Isychasm is quietism. I think that in the last few weeks I've become a bit of a quietist in terms of listening well. So much easier, isn't it, to hear the sounds of nature in our city when there's so much less traffic, to hear birds, to hear the odd footfall, just to hear things that normally we would take for granted. And what the Isychast does, the quietist listens to the prayers of one's own heart and understands that the inner voice that sometimes wells up, the inner voice of prayer, is actually the voice of God himself, the voice of the Holy Spirit speaking from within. St. Gregory of Sinai, who lived in the middle of the 14th century, he said this: St. Gregory of Sinai said, "Prayer is God who works all things in all people." Prayer is God who works all things in all people. And let's remember the words of John the Baptist that are in the Bible itself. He must increase, but I must decrease. And maybe Easter Saturday is a day when we can try and really focus down on that, on God increasing and us decreasing. So let's take this opportunity that this day offers to us to sense that in every level of ourselves, of our humanity, from the instinctive to the intellectual, from the subconscious to the supraconscious, we are in God and God is in you and in me. God is in us. We can be assured that while Jesus was in the tomb, God was at work in and beyond the world that you and I know. So let us allow him to work in us, in the quiet of our hearts and the stillness of our isolation this Easter Saturday. And may he bless you all.